Welcome, everyone, to the ABCs of Clinical Research. I am Gary Freeman, and I have over 30 years' experience in the clinical industry, having worked both in the pharmaceutical companies, device companies, and contract research organizations, and now work as a consultant to Barnett as well. This course was prepared with the administrative staff in mind to review the basics of clinical research and to highlight the important role that everyone has in this process. We want to make you all more productive team members. A solid team works best, and I hope that with the knowledge that you gain today, you will have more questions to ask of your team. This will make the whole process go much more smoothly and much more effectively. So let's get started at the learning objectives for today. We have a lot of objectives to cover in this time. The first is we need to recognize the importance of why we need knowledgeable people on the team. We don't want you to ever not question something in your clinical team. Your questions really drive the team. So be sure to ask questions. Don't ever think in your team that it's a foolish question, I don't really need to know, I'll just do what they tell me to do. Always ask questions. What is the reason for it? There should always be a rational reason. The second one will be to look at some of the common terms that we use. And again, we throw these around very generously in both the drug and device industries. So we want to be a little more knowledgeable about what they're talking about. That helps us to do our job. We're going to look at the basics then of the drug or device development process. How does it work? And this is going to be a general background piece. But in general, how does the drug or the device get developed? What is the course that's taken? How do we get something approved? Because that's what we're all working on. We're going to look at the basic principles then of good clinical practice, GCP. You'll hear that all the time. And the regulations. Where are the rules? How do we know what to follow in this development scheme? We're going to talk very basically about some clinical trial design, the use of a protocol. Most of us are working around a protocol. What is it? Why is it so important? We're going to look at the essential SOPs, or standard operating procedures. We're going to talk about those as being training documents. This is what the regulatory agency use to see how do we conduct our processes. How do we train each other? How would we know how a person handled a certain process if the person isn't available? Our response should be they followed the SOP. We'll talk about the responsibilities of various members of the clinical team. We're never alone. There should always be other people that are doing either the same thing we do or coming before or after us that should be able to help us. We're going to look at the essential documents and define what an essential document is. Much of our time is spent maneuvering these documents, perhaps creating a trial master file of all the documents. How do we get all that together? And who would ever look at it? We'll talk about the importance of training then and the maintenance of those records. The documentation of the training is as important as the training itself. And we'll look at the rationale behind building quality into our filing system. Our filing system, our trial master file, is the only way that we can show regulatory authorities that we know what we're doing and that we've done a really good job and that they should be able to trust all the information that we've gathered. And lastly, in the event that we do have a regulatory inspection, we'll talk about the do's and don'ts, how to get ready for that inspection, what to say or do should we be asked. So a lot of good points to bring up. So as we get started then, let's look at what knowledge is. Why would it be important that we know what we're doing? It seems kind of intuitive to many people, but not to everyone. Oftentimes management doesn't take the time to teach us. They assume everyone knows, or it's not important. Just do what we ask you to do as an administrative support person. So we look at the Webster Dictionary, and they define knowledge as familiarity, awareness, or an understanding gained through experience or study. In other words, we're not born with that knowledge. We have to learn it. And much of the time, it's on-the-job training in this industry. There are not a lot of courses that are taught. Why is it important that we know that we know what we're working with? It's important because FDA requires us to submit accurate, complete information. We need to know that that information is accurate. We need to know that it's complete. What is complete? FDA would assume that we know this. So we need to make sure that we do know it.